It's not on. Yeah, now.
Hello, good morning. It is the 21st of June. The
Oh,
summer solstice was yesterday at 9:51 in the evening.
my
That
my
means,
days are certainly very, very, very long at the moment, so I can
yeah,
appreciate that.
that does mean, however, that winter is coming. Yeah.
A winter of discontent, maybe. We never know.
No, it'll be a winter of content
Yeah, let's hope
and
so.
ice gems. Anyway, hello, welcome to Coffee, Buses, and Politics. Um, we are. Uh, I'm Alex Bulat. I'm joined here by Martin Curtis. No, you've got two beardy middle-aged men today. Um, uh, Alex is obviously running around during the election. Martin is away at the moment. He might join us if he can get a signal. Um, Obviously, we're in the full swing of the elections at the moment, um, and so we were going to talk about that and some of the theatre of the elections, and talk about hustings and
Yeah.
campaigning and so on. There's just something I wanted to say at the start. I don't want to overdo this, but I want to sort of get it off my chest. Um, as has been reported various places, including the Hunts Post, um, it appears there was some shenanigans regarding the Loves Farm hustings. There was a the opportunity for people to vote, and the link for people to vote was shared outside there, um, by Labour Party people, um, encouraging them to vote for the Labour candidate, even if they weren't in the room. Basically, to affect the to try to affect the outcome, to make it look like more people supported the Labour candidate Marianne than actually did in the room. Now, there's a few things here. Um, One, and I suppose perhaps this is the least important, just don't be so bloody stupid. You know, what are the optics on this? How would we react if another party did this? But it particularly annoyed me. Last week I was at an academic event, and actually for the first time I presented my PhD research, and I was talking about the local determinants of political opinions,
Hmm.
the importance of trust in politics, specifically in the context of anti-fascism, but whatever. It's something that means a lot to me, and I think doing this kind of thing wears away at that. It's it's not what you should be doing anyway, because I think it's dishonest, frankly. But the effect of it is to wear away at trust in the system as a whole, and I think that's a real problem. Um, it ends up, okay. You come out and you look, oh, I've won this hustings, but the effect is, the effect is to misdirect people, and the when it's found out, um, the effect is to reduce the quality of democracy. The other thing I'll say is we do have the Nolan principles of public life, um, and the last two are honesty and leadership. Um, I Honesty is, I think, speaks for itself, but leadership is also important. Holders of public office should exhibit these principles in their own behaviour and treat others with respect. They should actively promote and robustly support the principles and challenge poor behaviour wherever it occurs. and I've said this on Twitter, I'm somewhat disappointed that Marianne hasn't come out and said, look, this is not okay. I've no reason to think that she knew anything about it. But this was something being done, ostensibly for her benefit. And I would still like her to come out and say, this is not okay. This is not something that should have happened. I'm quite angry about this, because maintaining trust in politics is, if you like, deontologically right, but more important than ever, just from a sort of functional, keeping the system going point of view. So I'll stop there, but I wanted to get that off my chest, and I would still like Marianne to come out and say, look, this was not okay.
Yeah, I was in the same hustings because I was one of the other candidates, and for sure, Mariana wasn't involved in the act itself, because we were all sat behind a table. It was a really, really short poll, I think. We were still sat at on the podium or the platform, and none of us had our phones, because you just don't, do you? The one thing you don't have during hustings is you have your phone in your pocket, because it will be vibrating, and so we had our phones switched off, and everybody, you go through this high stress experience, everybody's relaxed. So she certainly didn't get involved in that. As a candidate, I've got over enthusiastic supporters too. Yeah, lots of them. Yeah, and quite often, especially since mine tend to be dressed up in t-shirts, they're very prominent. So sometimes you do have to be responsible for the acts of people who support you, even though you don't directly control them as well. So I can imagine a situation where somebody shared that link. One of my supporters might have shared that link. Yeah, they didn't, for sure. But if that had happened, you don't have any control over that. But you do have control over what happens afterwards. And the biggest casualty in this is the Loves Farm Community Association, because they'd gone above and beyond to set that hustings up. LFCA is a lovely community association full of lovely people. They put on a wonderful event, and I think it was really a wonderful hustings. It was brilliant. And at the end of it, this ends up being the story. And I think that the people that organise that are really, really upset about it, because it's become the whole story of that hustings as well. And I'll say, because as the person, so that was my first hustings. I'm fighting a campaign in which I don't have opinion polls, because opinion polls don't include me, and so everybody can say the exit polls at hustings are a nonsense. The audience is packed by people who are kind of political activists or biased. So it was in my hometown. I literally live half a mile from hustings. So I would have expected to have finished first there, even though I had an awful performance, and I don't think I did. I do think so. There was two polls. The first one was who impressed you most, and Catherine Fisher, the Green candidate, won that. And deservedly so, because she's a fantastic public speaker. I was in awe of that performance. But in who you're going to vote, and I was second in that poll, and who you're going to vote for, that was a good opportunity for me, even though it's a silly measure to show, look, I've got support around here, and I lost that momentum, but whatever. I don't want to talk too much about it, because I don't want to use this for political purposes either. So let's move on and talk about. So how many hustings have you been to this week, David?
So I've actually only been to one. There's been three in Huntingdon constituency. So Kimbolton, Huntingdon, and Little Stukely, or Great Stukely, in one of the Stukeleys. Unfortunately, I've had various work commitments, so I could only make the one. So I thought the one in Huntingdon, I actually thought was rather good. Dave Bridges organised it, and Paul Sweeney, who a lot of people know, compared. But it was at the town hall in Huntingdon. And all the candidates were there. It will come to a surprise to nobody that I may have a favourite candidate, and that there are other candidates that I liked, but perhaps not quite as much as Alex. And some candidates I wasn't particularly impressed. Well, I don't particularly like their politics. Um, the format was good. People got 30 seconds at the start to introduce themselves.
30.
Yeah,
That's short. We get between a minute and 2 minutes. 30 seconds. Stop
yeah.
speeches, I guess.
But also people were asked to introduce themselves by saying like a few things about them, like what their favorite music was and so on. So it was kept informed. Then we went into questions pretty quickly. There were 6 people on the panel, so I think they wanted the time for questions a couple of minutes each, and then they did questions were submitted in advance, then a quick fire round with short answers, and then a few questions from the floor. So I actually thought it went quite. It worked well to keep things moving. Yeah, no, it was good. I think it was the Kimbolton hustings. They had 7 minutes for each for introductions, and we've got.
7.
I think so. Yeah, I think it was 7, and we've got 6 candidates.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, it was the Reverend in Kimbolton who organised it, and he would have worked out what he thought was appropriate. But yeah, no, it was. I thought it was. Yeah, I mean,
how did our mate Alex get on in those hustings? So before we talk about this, yeah, Alex, I've been a county council with Alex for 3 years, and I've seen her blossom. She's always spoke at council meetings, yeah. So I can't think of a county council meeting where she hasn't done at least a speech, and usually it's 2 or 3. Yeah, right. So English isn't her first language, and when I was chair of the county council, and she was still quite new, she used to fit in a. I think it's 3 minutes a county council you can speak for. Is it 3 minutes? I think it's 3 minutes, and maybe it's 5 minutes. No, it's 5 minutes a county council you can speak for, but she would fit a 15-minute speech into 5 minutes because she's like a Gatling gun. She spoke so fast, but she has actually. I've seen her grow in confidence and ability as a public speaker. So how does she get on? Part of the problem with those formats is when you've got 45 seconds or a minute to answer a complicated question, you do end up having to blur it out, otherwise you run out of time. How did she get on with the last?
Well, it was 2 minutes to answer, 90 seconds to answer questions. So which I thought was good. I thought Alex did really well. Look, no one's gonna, no one thinks I'm unbiased. I thought Alex did really well. The poll going in had having the most support, and picked up a bit of support on the poll going out. So still had the most. Hustings, I think most people in the room know how they're going to vote on the way in.
Yeah.
But I thought did well with some difficult questions. I think put her views across effectively, and I think sort of showed who she is. In terms of the issues she's worked on and what she's been doing, but also the sort of how she goes about things. I thought she did rather well. I think there's a video, possibly. The issues, the acoustics in the town hall aren't great, so I don't know if that's coming. But I thought did rather well actually. I was impressed. One of the questions was favorite piece of music, and Alex went for Metallica. Nothing Else Matters.
I didn't know she was a bit of a metal fan.
Really and also the correct answer if you're going for Metallica is St. Anger, and I know that will annoy a lot of people, but
right, I'll note that down. Never having heard St. Anger, David.
Really? Sorry, this is going off topic. St. Anger is a song and the album. The album is controversial. I think a lot of Metallica fans hate it, and it sort of written at a difficult time for Metallica, and they just wanted to get it out. And it is unpolished, but it is definitely angry. And I actually anyway.
I think on a local level, one of the good things about hustings, talking about anger, is they're not really very angry. Yeah. And you spend, we spent the last 4 weeks, a group of people doing broadly similar things, going around, knocking on doors, posting leaflets, getting leaflets out. And we don't really get a chance to meet each other very often. And so one of the nicest things about hustings, and I've had 3 of them as well, and we're about halfway through our hustings now, bizarrely. I've got another 3 to go, which seems like a massive, massive effort. But you get to hang out with the candidates at the front in the green room. And that's a nice experience, because I guess it's the same as the online thing, is that you might have opinions about people, but when you have to sit down and have a chat with them, they are generally very lovely people. I don't think you can say that against all the candidates on our roster, but I don't want to name anybody. But actually, even people like Guy Lackland, the reform guy, who you think you're not going to get on with, isn't actually a perfectly charming chap, and we sit and have a lovely conversation. We don't agree on many things on politics. Same with Anthony Brown, is a nice enough chap when you sit with him in the green room. And so you go and you have these lovely conversations, you're all friendly and you're sharing experiences, and you have to go on to the podium, and then you end up debating against each other, and sometimes having to call out the other person on some of their record. So I guess Alex finds the same as I do. I thought the whole experience would be really, really intimidating, because I'm talking, I'm basically debating against a parliamentarian, and somebody who's run an election campaign before. And you think these people are going to be brilliant public speakers, and Anthony is a very decent public speaker. But then you have to answer and try and rehearse for hustings, because you could literally be asked anything, including what's your favorite Metallica song. And so I spent days before just trying to learn everything, or have responses to everything that I thought might be asked. And that process is utterly, utterly, utterly exhausting. And then the format for us, so the first husting for us was 45 seconds, and you get asked a complex question about domestic violence, about EWR, about what it can be anything, and trying to answer that in 45 seconds, get in a soundbite, and not also tie yourself up, is really, really challenging. So I spent a lot of time just rehearsing with people, and just get them to throw questions at me and trying to answer in 45 seconds. And so I started off really, really slowly in the first one, I thought, but by the end of it, I had lots of momentum, and I thought I did well. And so of the 3 hustings I've done so far, if you discount the thing we talked about at the start of it, I think I finished. Who would you vote for? I finished first in the first one. Second, which was on away territory, I finished second in. And the one in Citizen Hub, which was most of these things have got an audience full of activists, but the Citizen Hub one was a largely invited audience. And there, on the entry poll, I got 30%. On the exit poll, I got 45%. So I'm really pleased by that whole experience. And I think if I ask myself, why did I stand in the general election, is being at hustings was always going to be part of that, because it's a very frightening thing, and it's pushing me outside of my comfort zone, but it is part of the theatre of general elections, isn't it? I think doing these things is, do they win you lots of votes? I don't know. Can you lose lots of votes? Certainly, but I think they're just a lovely thing to do. And so I've got two more hustings left. I've got one on Monday on Girton, and I think next Friday there's one in Camborne now. And then on Monday lunchtime, we've got a BBC live debate, which I don't know if that's going to be question time format or what. But basically, we're going to be on BBC Live Radio and streamed on Monday afternoon, which will be a good opportunity. But I think for me, I'm not a confident or polished public speaker. Doing this has certainly helped. But I'm really proud to have done really well, because it was it was a very stressful experience. And having 2 consecutive hustings just absolutely wore me out.
Yeah, I mean, no good. I mean, I think the other thing to say is these were organised by volunteers. And thank you to them for organising it and for their public spiritedness. I mean, this is the thing, that it's one of the things where you probably don't convince many people, but it does seem to, I think there probably is a role in the process for it. I mean, I think you can lose votes if you screw up really badly.
Oh yeah, so absolutely. Remember when Ginoglu didn't turn up in St Neots at the last election, and actually that was after that. That's a press story if you don't show up, when your MP doesn't show up. But before that, there was a whole thing when a mutual friend of mine a friend of mine asked a question about her child that has disabilities, and he accused her of using her child as a political footprint for football, and that was a front page story as well. He still won the election, by a big margin. But you can definitely have a negative impact, and the potential for saying the wrong thing in a moment when you've got under pressure, 45 seconds to talk is well, maybe it's not as big as it seems, but it seems like a threat when you're up on the stage anyway. But I wouldn't. I mean, I think my memories of this campaign will be those hustings as much as the tedious knocking on doors and walking around estates and bending over for letterboxes. So I'm really, really pleased that we did it.
Yeah, I mean, I think he said that the person in question was a Labour activist.
Yeah.
Which came as news to the Labour Party.
Yeah, I mean, and that's it, isn't it? That is absolutely it. You don't get to control who follows you and who supports you, or if they follow you, and yeah, I think for most hustings, a majority of the audience are probably activists. Now, I don't have a party, but I've got lots of supporters and lots of friends who came and come and see me wherever. The Citizens Hub one for me was the best one, because that wasn't a hand-picked audience. It was a hand-picked audience. It wasn't one where you could just be there early and pack the audience with your supporters. So doing all that is good for me, and I really, really enjoyed it. We've still got 2 weeks to go, though, haven't we? That's the thing for me. So when this election was called, it's like, oh my God, 6 weeks is going to fly by. And now with 2 weeks to go, like, I'm shattered, and it's difficult to find the energy to keep on pushing for another 2 weeks, especially for me, the front of the campaign. Well, it has to be front loaded because I started from scratch 4 weeks ago, and there's various things that you think you have to do. Kind of conventional canvassing wisdom is that you get your leaflets out before the postal votes land. Now in St Neots and Mid Cambs, where the returning officer is from South Cambs, they sent out their postal votes, or the first batch of postal votes, yesterday. So the first people will be getting their postal votes today. Lots of people open that envelope up, don't they? They put their cross on, so don't forget, because they're more organised than me, and they post their vote straight away. So people will be voting in St Neots and Mid Cambs today, and since there's about 21% of postal voters, in the next few days, basically 21% of the electorate at least will have made its mind up, and with the ID requirements, that might even be higher this year. And then any canvassing you do from now onwards is basically 20% less effective, because some people will have voted. So
I mean, I think you're right. I mean, a lot of people vote by post. I think the thing is the campaigning, as you get closer to the election, people are thinking about it more. I mean, thank God we don't have election periods like they do in America, but at the start of the campaign, people aren't necessarily as engaged with it. We've got as you get through this, we've got 2 weeks left. I think people are starting to think about it more.
And there's also some fatigue with I mean, that's the other issue. If you peak your campaign too early, people get a bit bored of you as well, I think, and I might be guilty of that, so we'll see.
Yeah. Just on another one, did you watch any of the leaders' debates?
Yeah, I watched some of the one last night. I mainly saw Ed Davey, and mainly he was just apologizing for austerity, is what I thought. People just kept asking him questions about his role in austerity, and he was just like saying, yeah, sorry, we did some things wrong, which I don't think was. I mean, I'm all about standing up in politics and being accountable for the decisions you make, but he didn't come across very well for me. Miss Keir Starmer and I just, Rishi Sunak, I just struggle to take him seriously. What did you think of those? Did you watch?
So I should also say the one yesterday was from my alma mater, from the University of York, which was rather nice. It was in the wrong cook hub. It's just nice to see. I haven't watched any of them. I've been traveling for work, and I haven't been able to. I've read some of the write-ups of them, and I've watched some clips and so on.
There seems to be a lot of them, doesn't there? There seem to be on almost every night to me. It's difficult because my life goes past in a blur, and I'm always doing campaign activities in the evenings. So if I do happen to be sat on the sofa and not out, I'll be working on the next leaflet or working on a Facebook post or working on a website. So trying to concentrate enough is difficult. Well, one of the things is that as I tried to, especially for hustings, as I tried to elevate myself from being a local politician to being somebody, you know, one of the hustings we got the thing back, we're going to be asked questions on 30 minutes on local affairs, 30 minutes on national affairs, and 30 minutes of international affairs. Now, for me, yeah, going from talking about potholes, to talking about international crises or conflicts, there's a big reach there, and I thought that was going to be the struggle for me, is trying to elevate myself and have an opinion on all these international things. But it hasn't been, well, I've put a lot of work in, but it hasn't been too much of a problem. And actually, most of the hustings come down to either local things or things which you've had personal experience of. And I'm sure Alex can say the same thing, having been a county councillor for 3 years, district councillor for 2 years, and a town councillor for, well, it was 4 years. So I've been a councillor for 6 years in total, but I've kind of packed 10 years of experience into that, and so in that time it's easy for me to relate back. If we talk about care, I can talk about examples of failure of the care system. We can talk about road fatalities. I can say about the things that we've been involved in and the struggles we fought. So you can, I think, you know, the old route to get into being MP and the route that Alex and I are trying to push is to be a councillor first, isn't it? That used to be the old way. These days you have more career politicians who skip all the other stages and try and go straight into Parliament. But at least Alex and I have that experience we can come back from. So yeah, the leader debates, I don't know. I don't think the formats are very good. I don't think the formats of anything. So I kind of prefer the question time format where you can have a good discussion.
Yeah, I mean, from the clips I've seen, question time format was better. I was actually thinking that because there's quite a lot, and I'm not sure if this is a good idea or not, but I was thinking about it, to have a debate on each policy area.
Yeah.
So you have a leaders debate, but you also have a, you know, foreign policy debate and an education debate and a defence debate and a health debate and a economy debate, and you know, this sort of thing. I don't know if it would actually be a good idea or not, but I thought it would be, you know, might be a more interesting way of doing it, but also so that you know, with the you actually have some opportunity to get into a bit more detail about specific policy areas, and you have somebody who is, at least in theory, prepared on, you know, is familiar with all the issues and knows what their party's position is and all the rest of it.
So here's a question then from my next door neighbour. He lives across the road from me. He moved in recently, and he was one of the people who set up the Loves Farms hustings. He's a Green, yeah, but we're not going to hold that against him here. And he says, which party leader do you think is the most persuasive speaker? They're not a great group of orators, are they? There's not. It's a difficult question. I think that, I mean, in Parliament, Keir Starmer comes across okay, I think, but he's not a Tony Blair level public speaker. None of them are any good, are they? I just wasn't impressed by Ed Davey in any way at all, and not really impressed by his shenanigans campaign. Who do you think's the best public speaker, David? I don't really have an opinion. I don't think any of them are really good. Nigel
Farage.
Yeah, well, that's absolutely the answer, and actually, that's what we found at our hustings as well. Like Guy Lackland, who is such, I said to him, he's such a charming old fox that I felt like I was going to have to vote for. I'm not going to vote for him, but he speaks. They all speak very persuasive. Populists do, don't they? They speak very persuasively. They're very charming. They make some true, you know, they start their speeches with things which are probably true, you know, linking immigration to the housing crisis, and then they draw some weird conclusions which you could never agree with. So I think Nigel Farage is the most persuasive speaker, but he's not. Well, he clearly is very persuasive because he kind of, was it 52% of the country to vote for Brexit? So
yeah, I mean, I disagree with him on very many issues. I mean, I don't think the Reform speaker in Huntingdon did massively well, but you know.
Were you there for the question on LG? Would you protect the rights of LGBT people? Were you there that night as well? Because some of the answers that were shocking.
Yeah, I mean I think people were generally sort of pretty. I mean, again, no great surprise. I agree with Alex, and it was to an extent. I think she was making a similar point to Keir Starmer about wanting to take the toxicity out of the debate.
Yeah.
The thing is with the, and I'm just speaking for me here. There's the people tend to do the want to do this question, these gotcha questions. Can a woman have a penis? All of this sort of thing, and that's a terrible way of handling what should be quite it's quite a nuanced and sensitive question, where you are dealing with people. I mean, no great surprise to anyone. I support trans rights, and so on. I do think people have honestly held concerns about the implications of that. I do think, though, that sometimes that's is masking something else, and it's just transphobia sometimes. But also, when you've got a debate like that, you want to take the heat out of it and actually sort of be able to have the discussion, and that does mean you have to listen to people you really quite strongly disagree with, and take on board what they're saying, and that can be sort of difficult to do when the first question is a gotcha, and then people immediately go ooh and so on.
It's and those I've had none of those questions come up before, but absolutely that's something that if you were to tweet on it now, and give your opinions, I think you'd be instantly polled on from one side or the other side or both sides, and that's really problematic. I went to see Rory Stewart. I had one night off campaigning, and so Lara, who's my green friend as well, don't tell anybody, went to see Rory Stewart and came.
Wow, you have friends?
Well, political friends. Do you know what, mate? Yeah, I'll say this. Yeah, I'll say this. I've got friends. I've said I've got friends of all political persuasions, but that's not actually true, because I don't have friends on the far right. I don't think I've got many friends on the far left either. But I have got friends from lots of political parties. Yeah, I made a tweet about this. And some of those friends I've found out subsequently are not friends at all, because we can't go for an election campaign and they will say horrible things about me and behave horribly to me. But people like Lara and people like you, especially David, are beacons of integrity. We can disagree on politics, although we probably don't disagree on very much, but we'll still be mates at the end of it. Yeah. And, I've got friends, I've got conservative, our mutual friend, Martin Curtis. We won't agree with everything with Martin, but he's a good buddy. We go drinking with him and we can get on. And that's part of the sad thing about this whole experience is that, no, it just demonstrates who your friends are. So, Lara is a loyal Green. Obviously not going to vote for me, but we can talk to her and we can talk about the campaign and be friends, and so that's lovely. But we went to see Rory Stewart, and he talks about how he talks about, and I can't remember the exact, his whole stick is about 3 eras of world politics. How things have changed, and the final era is that everybody has deserted the centre ground, and the whole debate is from the extremes, and we can't talk to each other, and the whole trans issue, the whole what is a woman issue, the whole, even the Gaza and Palestine thing. You try and engage in a debate, and you just get pulled in from one side or the other, and so it's difficult, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it does feel on the sense of I agree, but and I know this is happening, but it's that that line from Yeats, things fall apart, the centre cannot hold, mere anarchy is loosed upon the world. I did just look that up. I don't know it off by heart.
You shouldn't have told us. Those Nolan principles again. Like I'd have just googled that and just read it out, mate. So
yeah.
What's go on, carry on.
No, I was going to say the. I mean, I'd like to have seen Rory Stewart, although I know it was him promoting his book. But I want to tell my Alistair Campbell story, so I'm going to talk about Alistair Campbell.
Please.
I went to an event organised by CBI Southwest, and this was years ago, because this was just after Alistair Campbell had finished doing his rugby thing, And so he gave his speech and then took questions. And I think he was expecting, some like lots of really difficult questions. All anybody wanted to talk about was rugby, football, and cricket. And there was one question which was really interesting, which is like who's the most like egotistical person you've met, and the person or the worst person or the most difficult person you've met was that effect. And he went for Mugabe. Which you can believe that. But he came around afterwards, just going around saying hello to people, and he came up to me, and the first thing he said to me was, "You should get rid of the beard."
What? What?
It turned out my dad had put it up to him. I hadn't had the beard for long.
Thank God for that.
I was a bit nice to meet you. The other thing with Alistair Campbell, he's a big guy.
Is he?
Right. There's a question here.
Rory Stewart isn't. Go on.
There's a question there from Tim. Star Trek: Next Generation or Addams Family.
Right.
There is objectively a correct answer. It's Star Trek: The Next Generation.
Well, do you know one of the things about hustings? Yeah, one of the things you realise is that some of the questions will be plants from your mates. Now, my mates have tried to plant questions. Yeah, they only forgot to inform me before they did. I'm like, why didn't you? Why didn't you tell me? Tim is a school friend of mine from back in the day. I haven't seen him for more than 30 years, but we used to go around pubs in Sussex on a Sunday evening, and there was a pub which had the Star Trek Next Generation pinball machine, and it must be the best pinball machine ever. I can't really remember the Addams Family one so much, but that TNG one was a fantastic pinball machine. So definitely that.
So okay, so actually literally about pinball. I thought it was like a rapid fire question.
Oh, yeah, no, it's about pinball machine. I mean, of those two things, obviously TNG is one of the highlights of television, wasn't it? Back in the day. I mean, it started off really shaky as well, like me at Hustings, but some of the middle series were pure drama. I don't think Star Trek's ever quite lived up to that level again.
Oh no! I just sorry, this is going way off politics. Deep Space Nine certainly did.
Yeah.
I think the last series of Enterprise was getting there. I think the beginning of Discovery did as well. And the Strange New Worlds is more along the lines of the original series. But again, has had some really good moments in it.
Surely the Locutus of Borg cliffhanger at the end of the season was one of the greatest cliffhangers in the day before we couldn't just stream the next season. And that was like years before we got that resolved, and absolutely blew me apart. And there wasn't any real internet at that stage, so we didn't have any warning of it or no resolution, and there was no fan. We couldn't even discuss it. We had to discuss it with our mates down the pub, and that was amazing.
No, I remember. With the election going on, and you're 2/3 of the way through.
3/4. It was 6 weeks. You got 2 weeks to go. It's 3/4.
2/3.
Oh, you're right. Nice. Yeah, I'm trying. Yeah, sorry. It's. Oh, I did this bit out by the podcast. It was 2/3.
David, you. I think you might be a bit tired with the election. It's worrying. Do you think the way we campaign works? As in the not particular parties or candidates, but so I was talking about this. I was at a thing, working in Croatia. I was just chatting to people, and some people were absolutely amazed that we go around knocking on doors.
I think
from other countries.
Well, I find it amazing as well, and because I'm quite a numerical person, despite the intro to this section, which I've made a fool of myself. Yeah, it's difficult to justify, isn't it? The door knocking thing. Everybody says they do it, and we all do it a bit. Yeah, I can't imagine how effective it can be and how it's a good use of time, because a decent conversation will tie you up for 20 minutes. Yeah, and it's a question: can you win more votes by delivering more leaflets, or writing a persuasive blog or doing a video than talking to, in an afternoon's canvassing, you might talk to 10 people. I don't know, you're probably better at it than me. There's also lots of failed attempts because you knock on people's doors and nobody's there. When you knock on people, in general, if my doorbell goes, I will run down in glee thinking it's going to be an Amazon thing that I'd forgotten I'd ordered. And if it's somebody who wants to interact with me in a different way, although I would like to talk to a political campaigner because of who I am. But for most people, if you're having a nap on the sofa, the doorbell goes, because people don't knock on your door anymore, do they? Apart from Amazon or delivery drivers, and you get a little dopamine rush when you pick up your package. And if it's somebody and you're not prepared to talk to them, it just seems a bit weird, I think. What's your reaction to doing that? Are you a big door knocking fan?
So it's quite time consuming and requires a lot of work.
So you have to have the strategy. So for political parties, you've got a good idea what doors to knock on. Yeah. For me, it's completely random. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think I think this is the thing. I think there are some people who I'm the same. I would be surprised if anyone knocked at the door wanting a conversation. We very rarely have people who aren't the immediate family in the house, and so on. And it feels a bit weird. But then I think some people do genuinely like the opportunity to have that conversation. I think a lot of people are well, the overwhelming majority of people are polite and will listen and ask questions, even if it's quite obvious that it's like, I was watching the telly and having a nap or whatever it is, and you can take, sometimes you knock on the door and the dog's going mental, the kid needs a bath, and it's like, oh, it's now a good time. I was like, oh no, it's fine. If that's good.
I knocked on the door around here of somebody who's one of my supporters, but basically, can Katie come down? No, because she's breastfeeding and giving the kids a bath. I'm thinking this is not a good time. It's not a good time, is it, to do those things? And so it's difficult. So I don't have enough intel to do it with any regularity, but I think it's always important, because if you're visiting an area, so it's for me in St Neots, do I want to knock on that many doors? I know. I think I know St Neots issues and St Neots people. If I'm in Northstowe or Girton, I need to get a feel as well for the real issues. You can do some of that from social media, but the best way of doing that is talking to people. People always also complain like, I haven't had anybody knock on my door since John Major, that kind of stuff. But the reality is, constituency is 75,000-ish voters, isn't it? And the number of doors you can knock on in any period. I think for me, the door knocking thing would be more useful in between campaigns, and if you did that, and if you do it with some kind of logistical support, where you go back, you listen to what people say, and then you go and knock on the same door in 6 months' time or a year's time and tell them what progress you've made. I mean, you can't pick up loads and loads of casework, especially during an election campaign as well. There's nothing you can do about it. But doing that, I think that's and as a campaigner, I know that Alex, before this election campaign started, as a county councillor in a county council division, she knocked on doors like one evening a week. I think probably she goes and knocks on doors and talks to people, which is, I mean, that's how you need to do it. What the amount of door knocking you can do in a 6-week campaign, I think is very limited. And I can't imagine. You always see the Conservative candidates saying they locked on loads of doors and got great reception. I cannot imagine anybody knocking on a lot of doors after 14 years of austerity without wanting to make a very political point. They're pretty unpopular at the moment, and so that's got to be demoralizing too, hasn't it? If people are going to be completely negative to you the whole time. Part of this whole general election campaign, you've got to keep your own morale up, and you have to keep the morale of your supporters up. If you're getting beasted on the doorstep by people, then I'm never convinced they're knocking on many doors. I'm just not.
I mean, it's hard to say. I mean, in theory, I can look up how many doors we've knocked on. I mean, I've been doing, I've organised quite a lot of that.
What's your opening gambit when you knock on the door? Somebody comes down their dressing room, looking half awake. what do you say? What's your little script? Or is that
So when
revealing
someone
secrets?
comes to the door and you've clearly annoyed them a bit, I usually start with, "Hi, my name's Stephen Ferguson."
Yeah.
No. So it'd be, "Hi, my name's David. I'm calling on behalf of Alex, who's the Labour Party candidate for the election. We're out around your area today, basically asking if there are any particular issues you want to talk about, whether that's local, national, or something else." Go from there and basically use that to start a conversation.
I remember when not for Nick Johnson's mayoral campaign, but when Nick was standing for Parliament around here, I got a knock on the door from a mutual friend, Nigel. Yeah,
Mm.
and like not Nigel, right? I love Nigel. Nigel can really talk. Yeah, he spoke to me last night. There was on the phone for me for 20 minutes last night. And I think I said about 4 words, and Nigel would just come and talk at me and I'm thinking, how it's basically I've wrapped up 30 minutes of your time. Yeah, I was probably going to vote for Nick anyway during that election, so I'm not sure what the point is. So there must be a question of getting the balance right and disengaging, because you can't keep talking forever, can you? You've got to get on.
So disengaging is so quite a lot of the conversations are fairly quick. You sort of write down what people's issues are. You sort of say the candidates out and about today. So we've been using a thing called a sort of floating candidate model. So you'll have a group of campaigners going out, and Alex will be sort of circulating. But it means if anybody's, you can say, "Oh, do you want to meet the candidate?" And then you go, "Alex, come to number 37, or go back to number 28, or whatever it happens to be."
Yeah,
that seems to have been working quite well for us. And it means, some people, are happy just to have a conversation. Some are like, "Actually, no, I'd really like to meet the candidate."
You've got quite a relatively, I don't know, but you've got a relatively strong party structure. I know it's not like in Cambridge City, when it's like an army, but you've got you and you've got some decent people involved. I did this poll on social media, and social media polls are never representative, but the question was like, which candidates have you received a leaflet from in the 4 weeks since the election was announced? Just to see, because there's lots of the whole only we can win here, just to see who's got their leaflets out, basically, because like I said at the start of this, like 20% of people will be voting very shortly, and the campaign is over for those people. So if you don't get your leaflets out before now, they're not as effective, and it's just standard conventional wisdom. Now, because this is a target seat for Lib Dems, we've had more than 10 leaflets, maybe even 15 leaflets. Basically, it seems like we get daily leaflets, not during the election campaign, but from the last few months from the Lib Dems. So they're trying really hard. But other than me, so I've managed to get my leaflets out across the whole constituency. So, I've basically, by the end of this weekend, will have delivered 75,000 leaflets. Now, some of those will be delivered, 50,000 of those will be delivered by the Royal Mail, and the other 25,000 by me and my friends, basically. And that, for me, that's really interesting, is that Lib Dems and me were top because everybody's had a leaflet. Almost everybody's had a leaflet from us. Conservatives bit down on that, and I get the feeling that they don't have the foot soldiers anymore. They just don't, and that they're not getting their leaflets out. And then nobody else had basically got them out, and that's really interesting, because it comes down to the question of who's genuinely contesting a constituency, or who's actually a paper candidate, or very disorganized, or doesn't have the resources, because it's an expensive game. It's printing 75,000 leaflets, in my case 140 signs, 50 t-shirts, banners, Van Hall, all those things are really expensive, and even the political parties don't necessarily have those resources, because quite sensibly they concentrate in places where they think they can win, rather than places where they're clearly not.
Well, that's a problem with the system, with the electoral system. But I mean, there's First Mailing in Huntingdon have had some business from Alex's campaign. I know, because I've been making a couple of calls to them, and it's like, okay, that will be this many £1,000. And it's like, okay, and fair enough. I mean, but it's like when you're writing to a constituency, it's expensive.
It is expensive.
I'm just gonna put in one slight whinge, which is people complaining that they get too many electoral communications.
I think during the general election period, that's fine. Yeah, I mean, I think around here, the volume of leafleting that Lib Dems have done, it gets to a stage where it's counterproductive, and people are bored of reading your leaflets and your graphs, and they don't engage with it anymore. There must be a whole thing where you need to send so many leaflets before people notice and see them. I get that, because especially, there's so much junk mail and so much legitimate mail, people don't take as much notice of the post these days. But so what's your point on the too many leaflets?
No, that so let me give you the thing about Keir Starmer being Keir Starmer's dad was a toolmaker.
Yeah,
and people keep saying, "Oh my God, why is he saying that again?" And you must know this on Facebook as well. When you are so sick to death of saying the same thing, people are starting to cotton on, because most people aren't political obsessives.
Yeah,
and it's the sort of conversation on Facebook is interspersed with the rest of their life. And it's the same thing with the leaflets. I thought, some people are looking to see what's there, but a lot of the time, you're trying to get the message out to people, saying, look, this is what we stand for. But it's hard to do, and you have to write to people more than once, or leaflet more than once, or whatever it happens to be. That's just it's when people say, "Oh, okay," and I get elections are annoying, the coverage is everywhere, all the rest of it. They're sort of quite important.
No, I think that people should cut us some slack for this 6 weeks. Yeah, I really, really do. So it's not so. I don't think people mind so much about the mailings, because you can just stick them in the bin if you don't like them, in the recycling bin, certainly, if you don't like them. That's fair enough. I think people do think that the conversation on social media, they get tired of it, and you can feel some fatigue, and especially somebody like me who's trying to campaign really hard, and I'm on social media every day, that people get bored of it. And I do wonder if we're not going to peak too much. And so back to the original question, do we think we campaign it? It's so difficult to know what to do, because there's so much of this is kind of built in, kind of conventional wisdom that's been accumulated over years, and I'm convinced that some of it doesn't really work. So the other thing now is that this stage of the campaign, for lots of people, be rushing around trying to get postal voters to vote us, and delivering communications to postal voters on the morning the envelope drops. Those kind of things are really difficult to execute unless you've got a big army. I'm sure the Lib Dems are out doing that this morning. So those things, and I think that I always think, where is the A/B test on all of these things? So if you're a campaigner and you've done something and it works, then you probably do it forever, or it seems to work. But we never compare by not doing things. So I've always wanted to try. Clearly that the impact of pamphlets is going down over time, because people engage more online. If I was trying to sell you something, the only things that you basically you buy after getting a leaflet through the door, Chinese takeaways and double glazing. That's typically the level of sales you get from leaflets. And so the fact that we all have to put the real cost of this campaign for me is printing costs. 75,000 leaflets is a massive cost. You have to do it though, and you can't. If you don't do it, people won't vote for you, and that's a bit unfortunate, I think. But it also it seems like some people only do that, and so I saw a Lib Dem advert last night. Instagram. He doesn't post on social media. He doesn't engage on social media. Anthony Brown, I think, has done a sterling job of promoting himself on social media, but every single post he posts attracts like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of negative, sometimes quite toxic comments, and that's counterintuitive as well. So trying to find out what the balance between social media, door knocking, leaflet. I think you have to get. I've always wanted to fight a local election campaign. I'm not going to have a chance now because I'm going to be a parliamentarian, obviously. But if I wanted to fight a local election campaign with no leaflets at one stage, just to see if I could do it. The trouble is the cost is so high of not getting elected, so you can't.
Yeah. I mean, in fairness, I think there is testing going on about what kind of messages work.
Yeah. Well, at
Quite
your
often,
level, yeah.
quite often those are focus grouped beforehand. I mean, this on the cost thing. One of the things, and just we've done some printing locally. For Labour, we've done some national printing. The reason you do the national printing is you do it through your party and you get a better deal.
Yeah.
And if you're sending out huge numbers of communications, that you have to, and it's the
Well, I have to as well, though, because I've paid every single penny of this election campaign has come out of my savings, yeah, and it's a lot of money, yeah. So actually, that's another disadvantage for me is I don't get bulk printing deals. I've got to pay for it all myself, and printing does get very, 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 very cheap if you go for big production runs. I mean, the difference between printing 25,000 and 55,000 leaflets is hardly anything. It's the posting 100 or printing 1,000 leaflets is massively expensive. And so when you're doing it on a national scale and you've got big deals with, I can imagine it's a lot cheaper for political parties, and they can also afford to deliver them by mail more.
Well, I mean, yeah, I mean the thing is that's still paid for by, in our case, Huntingdon Labour Party. So we can take advantage of the national deal, but it's I don't know. It's an interesting one. Is that the better way of campaigning? But the other thing is, I'm not sure what the alternative is. I mean, to be honest, you need to be campaigning across lots of different channels and doing lots of sort of exciting, interesting things. But it's it is hard. You see this with Ed Davey. Part of the reason he's campaigning as he is, and I mean, he looks like he's having the most fun on the campaign, is because it's hard for people who aren't going to realistically form the next government to get airtime.
Yeah,
and and so he does sort of stunts because they're eye catching as a way of getting their message out. What else do you do if you're in that situation? It's difficult. I mean, I think the other thing that has changed, of course, is local media isn't what it used to be.
No.
And that makes a big difference as well.
Yeah, can I just talk about the printing thing and the whole issue of local printing and bloody imprint? So election law says that if you have printed material, and there's a whole raft of social media guidelines now which have come in this year which make it more complicated. But for printed stuff, you have to have two things. You have to who it's promoted by. Now for Alex will be Alex's. Is it Bob? Is Bob the agent for this as well? So it's Alex. It will say promoted by Bob Jewell on behalf of Alex Boulat. And an address, but we also have to have. So for me, because I'm promoting myself, it's promoted by me and my address. Which, first start, I've got my home address on 75,000 leaflets, 500 posters, and 140 signs, which doesn't make my wife feel very comfortable at all. And you can imagine, so I haven't got a party address. I can't afford a PO box, and so that's what we've had to do. But then you have to put the printed by imprint, and so you have to put the name and the address of the printer. Now, if you're using different printers, you have to keep changing it all the time. And when I sent my print stuff up, I put it in, like, if you look at some of the Anthony Brown size on the A428, the imprint is in like 1 point, and you can't even read it really if you're up close to it. But lots of people would refuse to print my stuff unless I put the imprint in at least 9-point font. So I had loads of printing. So basically, I've spent at least 6 or 7 grand of my own money on printing, and all have to have these imprints on. Some of the early stuff I did, which I was in Germany at the start of the campaign on business, I was trying to design myself and get printed leaflets in a German hotel room at 3 o'clock in the morning. I just had to find a printer who would let me do that stuff online. And so I did some of my printing with Instant Print, which I think they're in Rotherham or somewhere, and it has their imprint. And suddenly I'm getting criticized on social media for not using local printers, despite the fact I've put, of all the 75,000 leaflets through local printers, I'm getting called out because some of my posters don't have a local address on them. And then you look at all the party political stuff because they get the deals you're talking about, and they're from all over the place. And so, yeah, it's not a very level playing field.
No, I mean, actually, the imprint is one that I think needs reconsidering.
Yeah.
I mean, this is something that Martin and I have been talking about a little bit. I mean, I forget exactly what the requirements are for social media things. I don't think you have to have an imprint in the same way.
You have to have all your social media accounts have to carry an imprint, and it's especially if you do some sort of banner or video, it has to have the promoted by a bit of the imprint at the end of it. Now, I don't know anybody, and I don't know what the penalties of getting caught out. I do know for some of my print stuff is that because I'm trying to do so many things, I'm not very good at delegating, but I delegated printing my signs to some of my friends. They designed them for me. I approved the prints, sent them to the printer, and the bloody printer took the imprint off. And then I've suddenly got literally 100 signs that don't have the proper imprint on them. And so I've had to get vinyl stickers, and we had to put stickers all. It's a palaver. So there are social media things as well, and I mean they're probably there for a reason, but it's difficult to know what that reason is. The other thing is anybody, if you are campaigning against a candidate, yeah. So if you are campaigning against Alex Bulat, yeah, and you're saying people should not vote for her in any way on social media, then you need to have an imprint too. And I always had I turned up at the first hustings, and as a surprise, one of my supporters had put on along the side of his van. He's put basically covered his van in a Vote Ferguson sausage dog banner, yeah, which was brilliant. And I look at it and I think, there's no fucking imprint on it. What am I going to do, man? You know, and so we fixed it up retrospectively. And if somebody else prints stuff that's not promoted by me, well, that's their problem as well. But all that stuff is really, really, really complicated, and they're all obstacles to stand.
But the thing is, you can put out a leaflet or a leaflet that looks like it's, in the branding or colours of a different party.
Wow.
It looks like a newspaper, and have in tiny letters somewhere who it's, printed and promoted by. I mean, for instance, on the I was going to say Dorset's Contact Creator, the thing we use for campaigning. If you run sheets off it, it's got a printed and promoted at the bottom of those. All the emails we send out have got promoted by, so this sort of thing. I mean, but it can be, and it's all. I hope it's legible, but it's like it can be quite hidden away, and I think that needs to be looked at again, and so on. And the other thing is on the address. Huntingdon Labour Party used to be my address. Took that off because my wife said, look, I'm not comfortable with this, and there is a real issue there of the effectively now people have to share, or a lot of people are sharing their home address, which is it likely that someone's going to come and attack you? No, but that's an extremely high risk event if it does happen.
Yeah, but I've absolutely had people come into my front. I mean, I don't think people should come to my front door. I mean, you can contact me in any numerous ways, and I'll get back to your email, WhatsApp, telephone, messenger, whatever. Do all of those things. Write to me. Do not come to my front door, unexpected, because it's worse than canvassing. If it happened during COVID. Well, I was one of those times we were allowed to go out and meet colleagues on outdoor things. I went walking with my colleagues in the Peak District, and then somebody came to my front door, opened my front door. A man looked my wife up and down and said, "Are you Stephen Ferguson's wife?" and just stared at her and walked off. And that caused an enormous amount of damage in my relationship, and actually could have ended my political career, because when I'm trying to explain to my wife why I want to run for Parliament, she remembers that, and it's awful. And so it's completely, we need to change that law, because it particularly if you work for a party, and Bob's probably used to it, your agent, or you could use a political address, like I'm sure Anthony Brown uses some mailing office in Sawston or something. But if you do that, then it's kind of fine. But if you can't do that, then it's awful. And it's not, I'm a big lad, but there's female like Sally Sally Howell, my district council friend and colleague, independent from Yaxley, lives. She lives with an old lady and has to put the old lady's address on because that's all she's got. And that
Yeah.
kind of we need to do. I'm doing a motion at council about that because it doesn't.
We're using Bob's address, and Bob's fine with that. Thank you, Bob.
Love Bob.
The various people across Cambridgeshire, Labour parties, I don't know exactly, are using Alex Wood Hall, which is Cambridge Labour Party's. They've actually got a building in Cambridge, surprisingly enough. So they've been doing that, and that's that's an option. But or maybe but it's like the expense. But the other thing is you're meant to be doing this all the time, and having a PO box all the time is kind of expensive. I mean, because I did look into this. A post office box from the Royal Mail is £42.60 a month.
Yeah.
Well, that's quite a lot of money. So I don't know what the solution is, but that strikes me as a problem. The thing is, there's a couple of people, and like I said, I'm a town councillor, parish councillor. There's a couple of people I've interacted with online, or who have emailed me, where I've gone, oh, this is, I'm actually a little bit worried about this.
Yeah.
And not necessarily that they're going to, sort of physically assault me or anything, but I don't want sort of someone coming and ranting and raving at me or at my other half on the doorstep, and that is that's a problem. And like I said, I don't know, for people who are listening, I don't know if this is of any interest at all, and may sound like candidates whinging or campaigners whinging, but it does strike me as actually being kind of an issue that we might want to think about, because it's a sort of another barrier to entry to politics.
But so at the same time that we get briefings, as as councillors. For me, as a county councillor and a district councillor, from the police, we got called, that there's talking to us about personal safety and the risk of getting attacked. I think as much as a terrorist thing, as much as a disgruntled. But we've had two MPs killed recently. Is it just two of them, Jo Cox and
McNamara? So
yeah.
I knew Jo Cox when she was Jo Leadbetter.
Yeah, that's awful. And so the first week of this campaign, my wife is really upset because of all of these things and the risk to my safety and being in the public things. So that's really difficult. But the police are telling us, look, do not reveal the location you go into. Try and obscure where you're going. This is as a councillor, not as a parliamentary candidate. Yeah. If they're worried about those kind of things, why are they require, not them requiring, but why do we have to put our addresses everywhere? Because it is a safety risk. Most of it, even on the ballot paper, you've got two options. You can say live in the constituency, or you can put your address in. I've put my address on, so that's another 75,000 people who know where I live. Now, look, you can find out where I live if you want to find out where I live. I'm not really bothered about that. You can find out where most people live with 192.com, or look in the electoral register. If you can go to the district council thing, sit in a room, and you can find somebody. It's in the public domain. But I'm putting it for everybody's doors. Everybody's seeing it all the time. So if somebody does have an issue with me, or somebody wants to has some sort of, mental health problem and does want to go and attack somebody, it just seems like not a good deal. That's the one thing I would absolutely change about all of this. I think is not having my address everywhere.
Yeah. No, and it's a consideration for for me as well. Like I said, it's probably still in a few places because I haven't got to everywhere, but when we know basically, because I talked to Alice about it, it's like, well, I'm not okay with this, and entirely reasonably. I mean, it's this is the thing. I would like, I think, on the electoral ballots, if it on their things, if it said either not have the address or address in the constituency, would be sufficient.
Well, you can do that, can't you? You
Yeah,
can say constituency, but I didn't want to do that because I wanted to show that I lived in St Ian's. It's
but this is the
basically
thing. There's a perceived advantage in in having your your address, saying, oh, I actually live in the constituency in the ward. So that's that is a problem. But anyway, we've been talking about the campaign and whinging a lot. Hello,
I think it's interesting. I hope it's interesting to give insights what it's like on the inside. Yeah, it might not be interesting to people listening now, but maybe any future campaigners might come back and find the archives of this and talk about it. There is a whole art to campaigning, isn't it? And it's it's good to talk about it sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, it is, and I mean, the thing is, it's quite stressful because you've got, it's been a 6-week campaign, and which was sort of dropped on us at short notice. Well, some people going down William Hill. I don't know if it was William Hill, but going down the bookies to put a bet on. And it's it's hard. I mean, I'm happy to, but I'm using sort of quite a lot of manual leave for the campaign, and
me too,
and so on. And it's, I mean, I'm sure even more so with your other half. It's like, oh, you're out again.
I just said to her, I've got 6 weeks. 6 weeks. You have to give me these 6 weeks, and then I'm going to make you the center of my life. After that, back again, which will be quite difficult if actually getting elected as well. Because I looked at it thinking, oh, there'll be a summer recess. We won't have to start straight away, and it's like starting on the 17th of July or something. And we've got family holiday booked at Butlins. I can't imagine telling my wife I'm not coming on our family holiday after having 6 weeks off because I've got to go and work in Parliament. So I might have to. I don't know. Nice problems to have, I guess. Yeah, I can't believe it's a quick campaign, and like I said, it's front loaded because logistics for me, printing starting from 0 4 weeks ago without a campaign team, to having delivered 75,000 leaflets. I think so. I think I've competed on the ground war. I haven't. Lib Dems have got like 17 million leaflets in that time, but I've got my leaflets out to everyone, and some people have got 2 leaflets. So I'm proud to go from that. Having nothing. And to have done that, for me, that's a huge achievement. And I think only me and Lib Dems are competing across the whole of the constituency. So that's good. But then it's like getting to yesterday and realizing there's still 2 weeks to go. I thought the 6 weeks was going to fly by, but you do so much and you have to do so much that it really isn't. And another 2 weeks of campaigning. So I'm just trying to imagine what comes next. So I'm meeting people in Camborne tonight. I love talking to people and hustings, those things. But what I'm going to keep doing, I guess it gets more strategic as the time goes on, and it's more about getting your messaging out. At the moment, it's a sprint at the start of the campaign, and I think like all races, you sprint a bit too hard, and so everybody's really exhausted now. And I could tell some of the performances at hustings from Catherine, who's the Green candidate, who was a brilliant public speaker. She was clearly tired. I was exhausted at the last one. So it's about managing your energy, isn't it, and not running out of steam. And I don't know what I'm going to feel like. I'm I'm an overweight chap, let's say it, but I've lost nearly a stone on this campaign now. And everybody's like, oh, it's all the walking. It's not the walking because I walk a lot anyway. It's the back. I'm too busy that I just forget to eat most of the time. When it gets to dinner time, you realize you haven't eaten because the stress levels are so high and you're thinking about other stuff. The hunger isn't one of the issues. So that's a good side effect, because I've lost, I'm down to my lowest weight for a couple of years. And if this campaign went on till November, I reckon I'd be down to a healthy BMI, probably. Maybe not.
Yeah, I mean that's I mean, the other thing is, I know everyone wants the results straight away, and okay, but the thing is, right? You spend the whole day, right? Get out the vote.
Yeah.
You get to 10 o'clock, the polls close, and then you've got to stay up till like 4 a.m. To get the results.
What time? When we're going to have to go to the count. What time do you go to the count? I mean, in the old days, as people used to go to the count. So you go to count at 10? Oh no, I'm not 6 hours in the count. Seems like a lot of time.
Yeah, I mean, they'll we've got the schedule from from HDC, and some of us are doing like counting things and so on. So we're or sampling, sorry, not counting, obviously, but so, what's it called? Polling agent, I think that's what it's called. But it's you're not, it's a lot, but yeah.
Well, we'll see. We've got so it's 2 weeks to go. So we've got 2 more of these, haven't we? We've got next week, yeah, and the one after. Is that right? Have we got 2 more?
13 days.
No,
13 days left.
Yeah, so we've only got 1 more of these, have we? Yeah. All right, so we'll do the final one next week. Hopefully, we'll have a bigger roster than just me and you. Although I've quite enjoyed this one, David. It's good to have a chat with you.
Yeah, likewise. Do you think that we'll do one a week on Friday?
I don't know. So, like Alex, the intention isn't that Alex isn't gone for good, yeah. But one or both of us might be MPs. Do you know what? I'm not going to make the commitment. If I get elected, I'm going to keep doing this. But I would quite like to keep doing this because I think it would increase the profile. And I think so I'm happy to do one. Should we? I don't know if we're going to commit to do one on Friday, July the 5th. That might be really hard because we would have been up all night. But let's. I don't know if Alex wants to do that. It could also be the fact that we might be getting in at 7:30 in the morning. It might be just one thing, so I might be prepared to do it. Well, you're going to be up all night as well, aren't you? Probably for that. We're all going to be up all night. I don't know.
I don't know.
Maybe we should do a Friday evening one, or do something, and we'll see if we can get our victorious Huntingdon candidate to talk to our victorious St Neots and Midcams candidate parliamentarians. By that stage, we wouldn't have been sworn in, but let's see. I'd like to do a wrap up. I'm really looking forward to the theatre of the count as well. That's the thing that I'm enjoying most, is these big theatrical things like the hustings, like the count. Yeah, handing in your nomination papers as well, as it feels a bit theatrical. Those kind of things are the things that you remember. So I'd like to report back fairly soon.
I mean, maybe we should do a live stream at 3 a.m. from,
Phil's got. Let's look this for Phil. Yeah, this is a really good suggestion. Well, we'll be at the counts, won't we? But that might be a way. Let's talk about that. I'll be prepared to do it, because actually counts are quite boring as well for a lot of the time, and you end up spending a lot of time talking to the other candidates, especially early in the count. So that's a great idea. I'm up for doing that if anybody else is, but let's talk about it later. Right, shall we go about our days? And campaign? No, actually, I'm going back to work. I went back to work yesterday for the first time, so I'm going to go and do some work.
I've actually got a stack of emails I've got to clear before I go on leave, which is always fun.
So are you on leave for the rest of the campaign? Is that what you are? Or you've got on leave for other reasons?
I'm actually, Alice and I, Alice and I have both got some leave. So we've got a load of stuff to do in the garden. So I'm going to be doing that, and then I'm going to be doing quite a lot of campaigning.
Yeah, I've kind of front loaded most of my leave. I've not got that much left, but I think I need to do that to get. For me, the campaign is more strategic now, and it's more air war stuff. I think we've competed in the ground game, which is leafleting and canvassing. For me, I want to be more strategic and getting my message out to bigger groups of people, so I can do that more easily from home. So, all right, it's been lovely to talk to you.
Likewise.
I'll see you same time next week. Maybe we can find some more friends to come on with us next week. Hopefully Martin will be back. I miss Martin.
Yeah.
And I'm looking forward to even if Alex gets elected and she doesn't want to keep doing this again, we need to have at least 1 or 2 final ones with Alex, because she's I'm quietly confident that she might win. Yeah. I think that I'm going to poll really, really strongly. I would say that, yeah, but everybody around my campaign is excited about how well it's going. So
we'll finish on this. It depends on turnout, and it depends actually on, I think, realistically, on what smaller parties do. In Huntingdon, the MRPs suggest it's very close, and I think that it depends on that. I think in St Neots and Midcams, you're a wild card. The MRPs are MRPs. They're based on national data. You're running more of a campaign than most independents do, and you have the profile. So it will be very interesting to see what happens.
Well, on the whole independents don't win thing, I wonder how many independents have ever run a constituency-wide campaign to the extent that I have done. Yeah, I don't know because I haven't seen it, but I think normally independents are just like, I think everybody expected I would just do the St Neots thing, yeah, and I wouldn't be out in Northstowe. I'm out in Camborne tonight from 6:15. So if you live in Camborne, you want to come and see me, come and have a chat. There's food trucks as well, so we can eat Jamaican food, hopefully. All right, that's it, I think.
Right.
Thank you very much, buddy. See you later, mate. Keep going. See you next week. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.